Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope you guys are doing well. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. And today we have a special treat. We get the opportunity to talk to Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, The Black History Reader, and others. And you haven't seen him for a while, but he is back. And this is the time we need you more than ever, Dr. Anderson. How you doing today?
Well, I'm feeling much better than I have for the last month or so. So I'm trying to come back, and because I miss my supporters all over the country and around the world, and I miss being on your show and your program. So I'm back. I'll do the best I can to keep up with you.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you, they love you, and you know, it's really kind of a chaotic state of the world right now that we're in. We're dealing with a situation where you got this thing going on with this virus, and people are scared to death. The reason I was even late for our interview is because right before I was supposed to talk to you, Alicia, my fiance, came downstairs and she said, Boyce, and she's all panicked, and she said that the state of Illinois has shut down. That as of tomorrow, you can't go out for nothing. And so first thing I thought was I got to go to the grocery store and make sure I got food for my family. So I had to go take care of that. And I was on the phone with my father. My father's a soldier like yourself. He's a veteran. He was in Vietnam. And he started speaking about, the fall of Saigon and his experiences in Vietnam, and just kind of warned in terms of saying it can get much worse. It can get much worse than this. And so that led me to believe, like, you know what, talking to you is exactly what people need right now, because people are scared. They don't know what's going on. They're looking for leadership. They're looking for elders to speak to them. So what are your thoughts, Dr. Anderson, in terms of what you're seeing in the world right now?
Well, right now, to be perfectly honest with you, this is a critical point for Black folk. Black folk right now are probably in the worst state they've been in since the end of slavery. This is it. And what I'm trying to tell Black folk, and I've been trying to tell them for the last 50 years, is that this year, 2020, should be the day of reckoning. The year of reckoning for Black folk. And that's why I talked about having a Harvest Festival Day, the second Saturday in August every year. But this is a reckoning. You know what I mean by a reckoning?
Explain it.
It's an accounting, holding people accountable. This is a year for Black folk to begin to hold people accountable on race matters in the country. That's why Black folk should publicly declare that this is a year, 2020 is a year of reckoning for Black folk in this nation, period. Because they got about a conflating of about three major things that are very detrimental to Black folk. One, you got this whole national election coming up with Donald Trump. That is a serious jeopardy you're getting on the horizon for this, I think, November election. Two, you got the Democratic primaries, which are really just was fake news. That was strictly entertainment. That is also a negative for Black folk. And just like with Donald Trump, which is a no-no for Black folk, there's nothing that Donald Trump can do for Black folk that's positive. Similar to the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is not going to do anything for Black folk. And Black folk now just got cast into a no-win situation between Biden and Sanders. And neither one are going to do anything for Black folk. And Biden is so damn weak that that's the worst thing that happened to Black folk. And the third thing is the virus. Those three things are together means a devastating thing for Black folk. And Black folk are totally ill prepared to deal with it because, as you said, the dominant white society is not prepared to deal with it. You heard me say 1,000 times in my books that when white folk catch cold, Black folk only catch pneumonia, and pneumonia is coming for Black folk. And I'm gonna stop at that point by saying this is the year, 2020 should be a year of reckoning for Black folk. And in my future podcast, even on my little thing, and in my books, I've given them 1,000 things they should be prepared to do and should be doing it right now in order to survive.
Now, you've talked a lot about survival. I've heard you, even before all the panic of coronavirus and all that stuff started, I remember seeing you talking about, if I'm not mistaken, help me remember what your exact words were on. You talked about the world kind of operating like a clock, and you said that the next step in the next stage of the world, food, water, and medicine, things like that will become very important. Can you kind of speak to that? Do you remember those particular remarks?
Yeah, I'll do that. And let me back into it based on your last comments just then. You got major food shortages coming too. right now, when you got water shortages coming, be quiet, because see, 20% of the world right now is suffering from water shortages. Water shortages when it comes to this country. Not just the water as a liquid, but as a matter of fact, it's for drinkable water. That's coming. And about the year 2030 to 2035, you're going to have food scarcities all across this country. And Black folk won't be able to get food even during this virus right now. But by 2030, which is 10 years from now, they better hang it up on the wall. That's why I stress so hard for them to start building these communities, which they've never done. They still mess around with neighborhoods, still listen to the jackleg politicians and the civil rights leaders and the ministers who don't know what in the world they're talking about. They keep presenting Black folk with a social illusion about social integration and haven't come a long way. Black folk have not come anywhere. They're still exactly where they were back during the slavery in 1860. Now you asked me about the clock. Well, I told Black folk in the Powernomics book, and see, I told all the Black folk, get those books and read them. I wrote those books after all my years and experience around in this country, around the world. I felt that since I'd had so many unique experiences, and after analytical analysis of everything I think about Black biologies and biographies and history of Black folks' involvement in politics, I've not seen anybody who had as many varied experiences at the highest levels of government as I'd had. I said, I'm gonna write these damn books for them, strictly for them. And Powernomics talks about that clock. And what it's talked about is wealth, for instance, wealth building. And it shows that the wealth and power on this earth started out at 12 o'clock. So put a clock in your mind. It started out at 12 o'clock, straight up like this, okay? And at that time, what was wealth and power based on? And when you go back about 2,000 or 3,000 years now, it was based on owning and controlling who owned and controlled the material resources at that time. And if he's a king or queen or gold, whatever he had, gold, silver, whatever it was, whoever owned and controlled the resources, that was king. And that was a primary generator of wealth. It came from owning and controlling materials and land, okay? Then that was at 12 o'clock. It moves in quarters. Then it moved over to, when it moved because of slavery, it moved over to 15 after 12 to 12:15. That was a clock. It went over to 3. And what that said then is that at this point in time, slavery became the primary generator of wealth and power in the world. That was slave power was the greatest power on earth. Started at that point. That's why you had the Industrial Revolution going through Europe in the 1700s. That was based on the Industrial Revolution generated by slave power. And when it came through in the 1800s into America, America got its power based on slave power. Neither time, whether it was in Europe or in America, were Black folk involved except as a cheap form of labor. And that's what, so you hear Donald Trump talking about MAGA, Make America Great Again. You got to put a B on that. Make America Great Again as before, which means slavery that's the only time America was great, was doing slavery of Black folk and semi-slavery from the 1860s up to the present time. They were the generators of wealth and power. That was at 12:15. The slave power was the generator of wealth. They industrialized the world. They were the engines that drove the economic development around the world. That lasted up until about 15 after 12 on the clock. And then that point in time, which brought us up to about the late 1850s in this country, after slavery started generating wealth in this country. Starting about 1850s, then what they did, technology jumped up on the scene. Technology kicked in at about 1850, in that point in time. And then whoever had technology, like whether it was a machinery at that time, whether it was building boats, new kind of boats, motors, telephone, radios, anything, that became the primary, airplanes, that became the primary generator of wealth in this nation and power, starting about 12:15, all the way around to 12:30. When 12:30 came, it changed again. At that time, what happened was computers came on the scene. Computers jumped in then, and computers became the primary generator of power and wealth, starting about 8:30 and lasted all up to the present time, up to about 12:45. On that quarter, then whoever owns and controls the computers, that became the greatest generator of wealth. That's why all this technology has been displacing human beings and creating robots and everything. That's the power coming from technology up to about 8 until about 12:45 now. But who has the power? Power is no longer based on, as it was at 12 o'clock, on owning, controlling materials and resources. It's now on watching little lights show up on a screen like you and I are looking at right now, just computer driven. That's why the United States is no longer an industrial power. They don't produce anything. They're now primarily consumers. The biggest thing that America produces right now are things relating to computers, to chips, to computer chips. And that's the biggest thing they're doing, anything but pertaining to that. Now, here's your problem. Computers are going to fail. Technology is going to fail. You're at 12:15 now. Between now and at 12:15 and going back up to the hands, back up to the top of the clock again, what's going to happen is going to fail. And what's going to happen to people that don't own and control any resources, like you're going to see right during this virus. Those that don't control any resources are not going to eat. They're not going to have a place to live. They're not going to have clothes, food, energy, anything. And so when the hand goes back up to 12 again, that's going to be a devastating point. The major power again will go back to where it was way back 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. And who owns and controls the resources, the land, the wealth, power, the gold, the silver, the chrome. That's why the dollar is going to collapse. The dollar right now might be worth about 3 cents. Even though you're carrying a dollar in your pocket saying a $1 bill, the real value of that is only about 3 cents on the market. People are going to try to figure out now and during this crisis how to jump from a dollar to something that has value. See, Nixon and the rest of them took us off of, our dollars no longer backed by gold. It's no longer gold back. It's not even silver back. It's just fiat money. Just people go just print it up. It has no basis to it. That's going to collapse. And that's why people right now are messing around with Wall Street trying to turn the cash as fast as they can to get that dollar. Then they're going to try to find out how to convert that dollar on getting resources as fast as they can. That's why Wall Street is going down. That's why Wall Street is cycling. They're gonna pull it all out, and new currency is going to hit the market probably within the next few years. That's going to be the value. That value going to be based on who owns, control gold and silver and materials, things, land. That's why I told black folk, go back and build their communities, own and control that if you're going to survive. Right now, you own and control less than 1/2 of 1%. You haven't got a snowball's chance in hell to be able to compete. That hand goes back up to 12 again.
Everybody who's watching, I'm speaking with Dr. Claude Anderson, and Dr. Anderson, I'm not going to have Dr. Anderson here for that long because I don't want to take up too much of his time today. But I felt that Dr. Anderson would be a great person for us to talk to right now because everybody out here is not sure what's going to happen next, what to do. A lot of states are shutting down this virus thing. There's stuff that they're not telling us about it, and so I thought he'd be a good guy for you to listen to. And also, he has books. I hope everybody, especially now that you got your kids at home and everything else, this is a great time to introduce them to Powernomics. You can do this as a blessing to your kids. So feel free to go to powernomics.com. That's where Dr. Anderson's books are. Black Labor, White Wealth, all his books. He has a whole library pack for just $99. This will make a difference in the lives of you and your children. So go to powernomics.com. So give me a yes in the chat if you either have or plan to introduce your children and your family to Powernomics principles. Give me a yes in the chat if that's something you've done. Because I'll tell you this, Dr. Anderson, I was talking about you today, and I mentioned today that I said HBCUs, many HBCUs are not going to survive this crisis. A lot of universities, like, for example, our kids, one of our kids goes to a boarding school, a science and tech boarding school, and they send them home for the year. My fiance teaches at a university. They shut everything down for a year. I believe a lot of HBCUs are going to probably not make it, either struggle or not make it through this crisis. Because a lot of universities are going to get sued, or parents are going to want refunds on tuition and all that. And I was saying today that I think it's a damn shame that none of the HBCUs, or not, I don't say none, but very few of them incorporate Powernomics principles, which I think should be a standard tool of education for every Black person in this country. Can you kind of speak to that? Was I accurate on that? The HBCUs haven't really embraced Powernomics philosophies. They kind of embrace other stuff that's out there, but not the things that our people really need. What do you think?
You're right. You're right on target. What they did, they went into the dream, Martin Luther King's dream. They bought into social integration. And even though they had never completed the task of what they were initially designed to do, was to fully elevate, educate, and qualify Blacks to be a competitive social economic group in this country. They've never done that. It's been about, so by the time they kicked in with the civil rights movement, they abandoned their original role. What they supposed to be doing, focus is strictly, solely, 100% on trying to change the conditions of black folk from slavery and semi-slavery to being a highly competitive, elevated, competent people in a new world. They didn't get that far. They bought into social integration. And then when they bought into social integration told them, hey, blackness is irrelevant. What I want you black HBUCs to be right now is just miniature white colleges, white universities. They became miniature white universities. They quit educating black kids to be as competent as they could as black kids, to go back, not into white communities, not into white businesses, to go back to their own community. And instead of teaching them business administration, teach them business industrialization, where blacks, they can build business and be a competitive people, how to invent things, produce, control, and ownership. And that, so what they did in the public policies, and see at that point in time, they started that, and I was over education for the state of Florida. And what they did then with HBOCs, they said, look, you HBUCs, either y'all gotta become miniature white colleges. You can't sit there and focus on black folk. And that killed them right there. So that was halfway, that was a death bail for black folk right there. They switched over and started trying to be socially integrated. And see, American Indians would never give up their colleges and do that. They didn't give up their college all of a sudden, so we're gonna bring in everybody and take the focus off of Indians. And they had their own universities and colleges. Jews want to give up theirs. Jews going to put theirs in there to push the issues for Jews in this country, and then make them a competitive group religiously in this country. But anyhow, so that's the first thing to kill black folk. The second thing is kill black folk. They moved away from the curriculums for strictly for black folk and started bringing in other professors. So right now, since that social integration movement hit the black colleges, probably about 6 or 7% of all the professors in the HBUCs, guess what? They're not even black. They're whites, Indians, and Arabs teaching black kids, and they can get away with that because they don't know anything about black history. So consequently, all the 6 or 7% of the professors in black colleges don't even know anything about black history. They're half 6 or 7% of a combination of whites, a combination, elaboration of sophistication of whites, Arabs, Asians teaching in black colleges. That hurt them. And thirdly, what they did, they started to bring in the textbooks. The textbooks now on all the black college campuses are pretty much under control of Barnes and Nobles. And when you go in there, they decide as whites. They examine the textbooks to find out what books are socially acceptable in black college campuses that will not excite black folk and re-educate them to be independent people and be competitive people. So they can't get. That's why my books are not in the. It might be 1 or 2 college campuses. That's it. And the last thing they did is in 1996, George Bush then further kicked the door open on that whole thing about social integration. But they passed a bill saying that in the future, where black folk had a special fund set up back in the 1860s, saying this money is strictly solely devoted to educating black children. They then kicked the door open in 1996 and says now those funds that have been set aside for HBUCs, they can no longer be strictly dedicated to blacks. And what they did then is that Bush passed a bill, got a bill through the legislature about 1995, 96, which says that now that any white college, Dr. Watkins, that has at least a 20% Hispanic population is now qualified to go into those funds and compete against black folk for them. So consequently, black folk, the money they pump into these funds of black colleges, right now, white colleges with a 20% white population, a Hispanic population, and Hispanics are nothing but whites speaking Spanish and passed as whites. So now that money doesn't even go to black folk. And the last thing is that they push so that while the white colleges were saying we're not going to give out any, it's reverse discrimination to give out loans and grants and benefits to black and white universities. That's the reverse discrimination. White kids then quit going to white colleges, started going over to the black colleges, and guess what? Getting full grants and scholarships because they're now classified as minorities. Where minority is a negative term on white college campuses for blacks. But when whites go to black colleges, that becomes a positive. They can get all kind of sums. Any white can go to a black college now and be classified and get monies out of historical black colleges for grants and loans that most of the black colleges black students can't even qualify. I gave you 6 points. I hope that's sufficient.
Oh, that's very sufficient. Yeah, you know, I'm sitting there thinking about, and everybody, by the way, please take 1 second, hit that thumbs up button. If you're watching on Twitter, please retweet. Facebook, please share this. Everybody needs to hear from Dr. Claude Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, and The Black History Reader. His website is powernomics.com. Also on the website, make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel and just connect somehow, because this is the kind of man that we need to all listen to. I think you already know that, but those who are new, I want to make sure you know that. And so, so Dr. Anderson, let me ask you this. So right now, you know, a lot of people are feeling that they don't have any leadership to really turn to. They feel like Trump's lying to them about this virus. The entire states are shutting down. There's a potential, some people even talking about martial law. They're talking about life really changing, you know, for everybody. You know, and you know, I'd like to get your sense of when you see this, you know, as a person who, you know, I know you served the military, you served your country as a veteran. You have seen good times and bad times. You understand the government very well. How should we interpret all of this that's going on around us in terms of being best prepared to protect ourselves and protect our families?
Okay, very simply, here we go again. What's going to happen is that black folk now are going to get caught in a bind, because with conditions after this virus thing is resolved, society is never going to be the same again. It's going to be twisted up. And what's going to happen is that they're going to use the same principles and policies they used 3 times in history to keep black folk in a lower class status. You got a ranking order of social acceptability in the country, going based on skin color: white, yellow, brown, black. Blacks are on the bottom. Black folk have always been outside and underneath the system, the social economic system. They've been locked in there. That's why I've told black folk in my book, Black Labor, White Wealth, that by the year, and that book is stipulated, I think about page 270 or something, stipulates that by the year 2013 or 2015, blacks will become a permanent underclass. You're now a permanent underclass. That's why the United States Department of Commerce in the 2014 census, that's why I put that chart in there, says this, that black folk are at the lowest ranking lowest than anybody in the country. Even the Asians, Arabs, and Hispanics and whites that come in this country as immigrants, they're all over black folk. And black folk have the lowest income in the country. And what black folk have is nothing to be able to survive off. Black folk right now only control 1/2 of 1% of anything of value, or has power connected to it. Black folk right now are suffering 6 to 8 times their fair share, Dr. Harkins. They're suffering the handicapping conditions of bearing 6 to 8 times their fair share of everything is bad and negative. The only thing that black folk lead in is that something that's negative. Blacks right now, they're number one. What do black folk lead in? They don't only control anything. They only got 1/2 of 1%, even though they're almost 13% of the population. They can't compete. And what this movement is going to do now with this virus, it's going to strip everything from black folk. Everything, they're going to use the same principles they use in the first Constitution, by using these very broad, ambiguous terms, like all the people, we the people. They know good and well doesn't pertain to black folk. They're going to use those words to give the pretense of fake news that black folk are included, and they're not going to be included. They use that in the first Constitution. They use it again in the civil rights laws of the civil rights laws in 1964 with President Johnson. They use it again in all the latest bills of civil rights laws. They use broad, ambiguous terms. That's why when Ronald Reagan came into the White House after I left there with President Carter, he says, "Look, you want to keep the status on black folk, and you want to shut down black folks, the civil rights movement in this country. You want to shut down the Black Power movement. Always exclude black folk by using very broad, ambiguous terms." he called Haldeman into the office in the White House. He says, always, whenever you're going to make a public statement, use very broad words like all the people, we the people, the working people, the middle class. Use those words, because black folk are so confused, they won't understand what you're talking about. He says, when you go out in the public, what you do, you switch and use those broad terms and talk about things like minorities, poor folk, people of color, working class, the poor people, anything, to give the implication that black folk are included when they're not going to be included. He says the jigs will never know that they're not included. GIG, that's what Ronald Reagan told Haldeman when he called him in the office in the White House. So use those very broad terms, just like it is in the Constitution. They say all the people got a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. They knew they weren't including black folk. They use those words all the time. That's why the second Constitution went in effect in 1865 got eviscerated, got corrupted, because again they switched off those. They rather than specifying it strictly for black folk, they switched to start using those very broad terms in the second Constitution. The second Constitution was made up of three things: 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, and the Civil Rights Laws of 1865 and 1866. They switched those terms off, and the United States Supreme Court started using those very broad terms. So they made it so that black folk couldn't use those things. That's why all the civil rights laws between 1865, what they call the Reconstruction period, they only lasted 10 years between 1865 and 1875, because everybody started using those broad terms to exclude and shut black folk out. The 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, and the civil rights laws, and gave the pretense that it belongs, that everybody was included. When those laws were really put into effect after the Civil War ended, was to rectify or reverse the 1857 Dred Scott decision, which says when he went to court, the Supreme Court came out and says a black man, B-L-A-C-K, a black man has no rights and privileges that a white man is bound to respect. That was the Dred Scott decision of 1857. And we put those laws out on the book from and after the Civil War in 1860. The radical Republican says this is strictly for black folk. They say because the only thing black folk can ever be in this country is two things: either going to be continue to be slaves, which means on the bottom, or they're going to be free. And say unless you give them the resources, the rights, at least 40 acres of mule and $100, they'll always be under the bottom. But they immediately converted those things over so that the black folk couldn't use the 13th and 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights, 15th Amendment, Civil Rights laws for themselves. And that's why, even though between 1865 and 1875, Congress legislated about 9 civil rights laws specifically designed for black folk. And guess what? The United States Supreme Court, which is the guardian of racism in America, notified all of them, say they were unconstitutional. And that's why in 1875, the Reconstruction period ended. It only lasted for 10 years because everybody got bamboozled, and black folk went along with it by saying all the people, we the people. I got a dream about everybody. And then when you use those broad terms, you notify your own people, you shoot your own people in the head, because you are supposed to be exceptional people. You're the only people that came to this country, not for rights and privileges and the new opportunities. You came here to be enslaved, to be a labor class. But see, nobody tells black folk that. So consequently, after this movement by the Congress right now, what they're getting ready to do now is to set up special programs for what they call bailouts. You know what a bailout is?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, when Congress steps up and they provide a lot of money to boost a certain industry, a certain company or sector of the economy. Is that what you mean?
That's right. That's right. A bailout is providing financial assistance and other rights and privileges to very special people. And then historically, they did that when they for whites only coming to the country. And but so the best way, so it's called freedom dues. That's what it is, which means to maintain the freedom in this country, give these people dues some resources. That's why they don't mind bailing out. That's why what white folk call indentured servants, white servants. They were contracted when they came to America as poor whites. They were contracted servants on a 7-year contract. After 7 years, white servants, the white indentured servants, were set free for what they call freedom dues, and they got paid for those 7 years. At the end of that 7-year period, they got free land. They got wages, withheld wages. They got land, they got resources, they got tools, they got rights, they got animals, and they got all the privileges. And that's what the indentured service got. It's called freedom dues. They're going to use that same thing again. But black folk came out of slavery and didn't get anything. They're going to use that same principle again. And right now, these corporations today, the automobile industry going to be bailed out. Wall Street banks are going to be bailed out. You're going to find not only that, but you're going to find automobile industries. You're going to find hotels. So they're going to put on a broad term called small businesses. They know blacks don't have any businesses. If you got less than 1/2 or 1% of the businesses in the country, you're not gonna get any bailouts. In terms of hotels, if all these hotels gonna get these bailouts now, guess what? And across the United States, you got about 5 or 6. You don't have that, man. About 3 or 4 major hotels in the entire United States. But when they get bailed out, guess what? 46% of all the hotels in the United States are owned by Asians, or owned and controlled by Asians. They're gonna get bailed out. Everybody's gonna get bailed out, get money, except black people. And how's that gonna hurt black folk? Black folk have failed to build those communities I told them to build. They're not independent. They have no resources in those communities. They don't have a community. What they got are neighborhoods. In those neighborhoods, there are no major grocery stores in those neighborhoods for black folk. They're not getting any food. They're not be able to go get bottled water and all that stuff. In those black neighborhoods, they don't have any drug stores in there. In those black neighborhoods, they don't have any clinics in there in those neighborhoods. When all these bodies started showing up, we expect somewhere like maybe 2 million people might die from this virus, or be afflicted with it. And black folk don't have any clinics. They don't have any hospitals in the black neighborhoods. They only had 2 in the United States one time. That was Howard University in Washington, D.C., and one in Harlem. Now you might have they're getting ready to take both of those out. So blacks don't have any place to go. They don't have a place to go for medicine, for doctors. There's no doctors. Most of the doctors now in the United States, they used to be black. They've been replaced by Indians and Arabs. And now, so you haven't got anything. This thing gonna devastate black folk. They're gonna use those broad terms and say we're doing it for everybody, and bail it out everybody for black folk. When they could have said, when you say bring up reparations, well, why don't you bail out black folk with reparations? That's what it is. Why don't you compensate them? You'll find that back in history, 98% of all the white people in America were totally opposed to freeing slaves. And after 150 years to presently, right now, 88% of all the white people in America are totally adamantly opposed to giving in the reparations, the benefits to black folk, or freedom dues to them, like everybody else has got it, like the Germans got it, the Japanese got it, American Indians got reparations. Everybody's got reparations and some benefits except black folk. So right now, black folk in a very terrible, dangerous position. And when this thing ends up, they're gonna get nothing. Everybody else is gonna get something. They're gonna use these broad terms. Black folk don't have anything in these neighborhoods because they fail to carry out the powernomics principles and build communities, as I told them to start doing 60 years ago when I was heading up economic development for governors in the country, heading up trade missions around the world for the United States. I told black folk, build your own communities, bring your own resources in, build businesses, provide resources for yourselves so you be independent, so you have some water and food, and you won't have to go to white folk. White folk are gonna shut you out. They're gonna let you come to their stores and get a damn thing. You're gonna get anything. You won't even be able to get gasoline. I know, and let me stop. I'm giving you a long lecture. Go ahead. I'm take over now. Take it away from me.
No. That's a good perspective, because I was talking to my father right before you and I talked, and my father, he was in Vietnam, and one of the things he was talking to me about was that we're kind of spoiled in this country. Like we're used to everything being stable. We're used to having credit and security and things like that. And and things could change really fast. He talks about when Saigon fell and what it was like in Vietnam with the black market and everything else. And so I think that just in general, I think that being black has always meant that you had to have, you had to create some sort of survival skill. And I think some of us have thought about that a little more than others. Like I remember when, when my survival instincts had to kick in was when I had to figure out how to get by in the world without going to work for a white man. Most of us expect to do that, but then even now, when you're talking about this virus making everybody afraid, the economy shutting down, people are getting laid off. They said layoffs are going to hit a level that they have not seen in the history of this country. They said that there are going to be just millions of job losses, up to potentially 5 million job losses in the next report. And what it's kind of doing is it's creating a situation where some people are going to be okay, some people are not. You have 2-3 weeks where people are not getting a paycheck. There's a lot of dynamics that come into play that go back to survival skills that I know that you've always talked about. And so I think in general, just sort of being alert to what's going on is really important for black folks. So let me ask you this in the last.
Let me speak to that point you just made about the unemployment rate. Yes, you're going to have a massive upshot in unemployment in the country. That's going to happen as these businesses shut down across the country. They projected something like maybe 500,000 people or 1,000,000 people losing their jobs. But that, nigga says, it's never happened before, but that's a lie. It did happen in 1929. Yeah, we had Dr. Watson, what was called the Great Depression, where the unemployment right now was higher. It went up to 25% nationally. Now they're projecting that maybe the unemployment rate now after this virus, it might jump up to 20% again. That's still 5% less than it was during the Great Depression. But guess what? Compose that against what the realities of unemployment is for Black folk right now. Contrary to what you hear about unemployment in this country, about Black folk only got a 4 or 5% unemployment rate. That's one of the biggest lies ever told. The national unemployment rate for Black folk in America right now, the national unemployment rate is unreported because Black folk have structural unemployment. Some of these Black folk haven't had jobs in so long they don't even look for it anymore. The national unemployment rolls are structured on two things: people who are looking for jobs and those who are collecting unemployment insurance and compensation. Black folk unemployment is 35%. It's still in Baltimore, it's 48%. Detroit is 48%. In Pittsburgh it's 49%. And if in New York already, for young Black folk, young Black people in there, it's almost 77% for unemployment rate. And that's gonna kill Black folk. And nobody's gonna do it, gonna address it, because they're gonna start talking about unemployment. The dumbest thing you ever talk about when you start talking about Black folk is unemployment. You know why? Black folk are not unemployed. Black folk are not employed. Even those are misleading, those are fake figures, Dr. Watkins. Black folk problem is not unemployment, but they're gonna say that and bring it down to the lowest level so Black folk get confused and won't understand what's going on. Black's problem is not unemployment. You know what it is?
What's that?
Joblessness.
Wow.
See, and nobody's going to talk about that. See, unemployment is based on, I mean, that you're temporarily out of a job, but you got access and resources that you can live on to survive, or you always got the possibility you can connect up with a job. And see, that's why on that basis of what constitutes real unemployment, about 87% of all the whites in America right now are unemployed. You know why?
Well,
because 87% of all the income that whites get in the country is unearned, Dr. Watkins. It comes from trust accounts, benefits, capital gains. It comes from stock market. They're not working for it. They're getting it. 87% of what white folk call their annual income is unearned, just like in slavery. And almost 100% of whites' income was unearned. But see, that's not true with Black folks. See, Black folk can see any white person that's unemployed. Everything is in his community. Everything is in his community. He can make contact with it anytime he wants and go find a job, because all the jobs and all the businesses and the factories are in his community. All the agencies for employing people in his community. There's nothing in the black community. How the hell is he going to be unemployed? He's not unemployed. How's he going to make contact with a job in the ghetto? Unless he can dress himself up, got an automobile and look nice and clean and go drive out to someone else's neighborhood and kiss their rear end and beg for a job. See that because there's no businesses in the Black communities, they can't find jobs. So they're suffering from joblessness. And the joblessness comes from businessless, not having enough sufficient businesses to be able to employ your own people. You'll see 95% of white people and other groups of Asian Arabs, they work for their own companies and their own businesses in their own neighborhoods. Black people are the only people that 98% are working for somebody else in the country, working either for government. 68% are working for government, some level of government. About another 27% are working in white corporations, and only 2% of the Blacks in America are working for their own businesses in their own neighborhoods. Black folk are suffering from joblessness, not unemployment. But watch when this virus comes, they're gonna play games with you and say, what we gotta do something about Black unemployment. Forget Black unemployment. You give Black folk the resources, the money, and compensate them those freedom dues, the reparation. Let them build their own factories and industries. And that's where the game is gonna start. That's why people like Donald Trump just passed an act, had Congress pass a law called the Opportunity Act. And guess what it's gonna go into focus on? Going into urban areas, to invite people to come into urban areas and build businesses. But guess who those people are gonna be? Everybody but Black folk. See, Dr. Watkins, 70% 70% of all the black people in America live in and around 10 large metropolitan cities. 70% live around those 10 metropolitan cities. Guess what they've designed, called an Opportunity Act for businesses. If they could focus on those cities and go in there and invite and provide incentives, tax credits and everything else, and freedom funds for businesses to go into urban black areas, and for white folk to come in and build businesses. And to guess what? And gentrify those cities. All those major cities like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Michigan, are going to be gentrified under that Opportunity Act that the conservative Republicans enacted about a year or so ago. And they're going to say, well, we can provide jobs for black folk. Black folk don't need jobs, they need businesses. Mm-hmm. They employ their own people. And these black HBUCs need to quit teaching black folk to be administrators in white businesses. They need to teach them how to go out and industrialize and build their own businesses and take care of their own people, be independent, self-reliant, and competitive. And I've told every one of my books focus on that. Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, and the two Dirty Little Secrets books, and the Black History Readers tells them that over and over again, that you're totally dependent on the white side. You're an appendage. You're an add-on to the white society. You're disposable whenever they want to dispose of you.
All right. Well, everybody, you heard it from Dr. Anderson, and this is Dr. Claude Anderson. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, and the Black History Reader. His website is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. And I want to say thank you to those who donated in the chat. I didn't want to interrupt. I don't interrupt when Dr. Anderson's talking because I feel that his message needs to get out there. But I see Willie D made a donation. Thank you very much, brother. Willie D, Dr. Anderson, I don't know how much you know about him, but he's more than a rapper. He's a great guy and a great leader for the community. And I have a lot of respect for him. And I want to make sure everybody knows that. So if you all could do this, please, before we get on out of here, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Also, Dr. Anderson's website is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. Go there. You got your family at home. Feel free to check out some of his books. I think Powernomics should be required reading for everybody in the Black community. Read his books far before you read mine. My books are out there. drboycebooks.com is where my books are. But I want you to read his books before you read mine because we need to learn self-reliance and independence, especially now. Sometimes when you are afraid, that is when you are more focused. That is when you set yourself up for an amazing comeback. And it is times like this when things are chaotic that power moves are made. That is when countries declare their independence. When there's a world war, things like that. So at this moment, when things are chaotic, this is the time to declare our independence. So move forward. I'm there with you. The Black Business School, of course, is there as well. And powernomics.com, that's the website one more time. So if you guys could please share that, we would appreciate it. And Dr. Anderson, I'm going to let you go ahead and go. I know that you said you wanted 30 minutes. You gave us 45, which I really appreciate. And maybe next week, if you feel better, and of course, the door's wide open for you. If you feel up to it, you are welcome to come back in because I think people really want to hear from your perspective and they want to know just, what you think about what's going on. Is that okay with you?
That sounds good. Now, I'll take you up on that. And because I love being with you and I think I classify you probably one of the best friends I got in the nation, okay? Or in the world. And I love and respect you so much for your qualifications and particularly in economics. But the other thing is that this weekend, and I'm still got some health challenges, but I'm gonna focus a little bit on trying to get my podcast up sometime, do something maybe about the first of the week. And I'm gonna go through all these questions you asked, and I'm gonna break out exactly in very specific instances, exactly what's the negative and the positives between the politics and the virus. Those two things are connected together. Because you see, those people are running for public office right now for the Democratic Party. They have no intentions of doing anything for Black folk. That's why Biden will not respond to any questions about what you're going to do for Black folk and what you're going to do about reparations. He avoids it. And Trump already said, you vote for me and you ain't got nothing to lose, I'm not going to do anything for you. Nobody intends to do anything for Black folk. And Black folk keep playing the game. I'm just absolutely amazed and surprised. They keep going out playing the game about who they voting for. No white person has ever run for a public office except one recently. And that's the guy that's from New York. What was his name? Bloomberg. He just said, if you elect me in office, I will do something for Black. I'll make try to create 1 million black businesses in the United States. Some people, I hear some people say, well, Dr. Anderson, we can't deal with him because he was effectuating a policy called stop and frisk in New York. And that was negative for black folks. There's no way I'll ever vote for him. I said, hell, white folk enslaved your ass for 360 years. And then Jim Crow's re-enslaved you for another 100 years. And then benign that elected you and abused you and castrated and lynched you. And on body counts for another 60 years since post-Civil War time. And yet you're going to say you're going to vote for this guy who promised you something because he had a stop and frisk policy. I just cannot believe that. And they should have kept Bloomberg in because Biden's not going to do anything. And Donald Trump is not going to do anything. And Donald Trump said, well, historically, he knew that black folk have not given Republicans more than about 2% of their votes since 1950s. Since they ceased becoming, blacks used to be the Republican Party. Black folk was a core now for the Democratic Party. It used to be the core for the Republican Party. But when they switched, they changed clothes with the Southern rednecks in the 1950s. And they both changed uniforms and walked across the street. And blacks that used to be in the Republican Party became the Democrats. And the Democrats, who were the Dixiecrats, walked across the street and became Republicans. And by that time, the Republican Party has never since then ever received more than 2% of the black vote. But when Donald Trump ran, they gave him 9%. Now he said he's looking for 20%. And see, and if black folk go for that one, it might not be. I'm not against Trump. I'm not against Biden. But what black folks should be saying is not who I vote for. It's what am I voting for? What are you voting for? What do you plan on getting from Trump? What do you plan on getting from Biden? What do you plan on getting from Sanders? They start talking about this all and everybody. Anytime somebody talking about what they're gonna do, if you're black, they start talking about what they're gonna do for minorities and poor folk, people of color, handicapped, midgets, anybody. You walk away from them. You tell them that right now you're still suffering the legacies and the handicapping conditions of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery until you specifically focus on black folk and say we are exceptional people. We're special people. We're exceptional people when you made us the only people that you put into enslavement and Jim Crow segregation. You make us special and bring us out with those freedom dues that Anderson talked about. You start getting out these bailouts for the banks and for the hospitals and for the airlines. You get that money to also the black folk in reparations. Right now, you owe black folk trillions of damn dollars. Get that money to them and bring them out. And don't worry about them about any social integration. Blacks don't need no damn social integration. You give them the money so they can go back to rebuild their own communities, get away from this BS that Martin Luther King talking about I got a dream, and start having a damn vision. A vision about building your own communities, building your own businesses, your own industries, and then providing jobs. Providing businesses, first of all, in your own communities that can provide products, services, goods, employment opportunities, and a tax base for you, build those communities. And then when they build those businesses, make those businesses responsible for hiring these young black folk and for the old black folk. Let them not only provide food for you and clothing and shoes and everything else, but also provide jobs. And also then bring back your own doctors and medical practitioners, build some black clinics and hospitals in your own neighborhoods. So in case of a disaster, whether it's a virus or this one or another one's coming. And I wrote 2 articles in the Powernomics, in the Harvest Institute newsletters. Tell them to go to the harvestinstitute.org. You'll see 2 articles in there about germs coming to America. And we haven't got time to discuss it today. But germs are going to continue to come to this country. You know why they're going to continue to come? Because you got a continuous flow of immigrants. And anytime you move something, migrate, bring something from one part of the country to another, with that is going to be a negative. There's always a balance. If you start bringing in different kind of vegetation from another country, bringing this country, it's going to go wild. You haven't got a way of killing it off. You see people, for instance, start bringing in the African slugs into this country. Snails into this country. Guess what? Those things got free and started eating the paint off the walls and off the buildings in Miami. You started when the fire ants started coming up into this country, invading this country. They started destroying all the crops and stuff in the South. Anytime when people started bringing in boa constrictors and all kind of exotic snakes and turn them loose in our country, those things now have taken over South Florida. And they're eating up all the damn animals in the rural areas of Florida. So when you bring in immigrants from another country, they're going to bring something with them. They're going to bring all kind of viruses, like things that we thought we had gotten rid of in terms of germs. We thought we had gotten rid of polio, smallpox, measles, and mumps, and all that kind of stuff. Those diseases are going to come back. Those as new people come from Latin America, from the Middle East, and from Africa, or from China, they're going to bring diseases with them. Those diseases are going to be new for us because we've not, our bodies have not adjusted. We've gotten rid of those things, and when they're going to bring in new disease, our bodies won't be able to accommodate them or fight them or resist them. That's why we're going to continue to see more and more viruses. As long as you got an open door, bring in more immigrants, not only going to displace black folk, but sooner or later they're going to dispose of them and get them off this damn face of the earth.
Mm. All right. Well, did you guys hear that? I hope you all were listening. First of all, I want to say thank you, Najma Brown, for your donation. We appreciate that. We will put this back into the community and continue to grow the platform. So thank you very much. And thank you, Boog Brown. He says, I just want to contribute. I appreciate that as well. The goal is to grow. The goal is to control Black media because I don't know about you guys, but I've made it my life mission to make sure that our children know about the people they need to know about. They don't need to know about, Lizzo and Cardi B or whatever else they're hearing about in Hollywood, or Billy Porter wearing dresses. They need to hear about Dr. Claude Anderson. They need to hear about people that are going to elevate your community, and that's why we work so hard to build the platform. And that's why I'm very happy to share it with individuals like Dr. Anderson, because I have as much love and respect as you showed toward me. I have the same. We have to have a contest, because I say I love you 10 times more, but then again, the love you're giving to us is invaluable, sir. Is absolutely invaluable. So everybody, if you could, please give a digital thank you, a digital round of applause to Dr. Anderson. Let him know that you hold him in higher regard than any of these white folks they teach about in history class. Public school ain't gonna teach you about your kids about people like Dr. Anderson, but these are the real history makers. These are the real Black leaders. These are the people that we need to listen to, and that's what this platform is all about. So the website, if you want to go and be more of a part of what Dr. Anderson's got going on, I can guarantee you it's going to make a difference in your life. It's powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. And so Dr. Anderson, I want to say thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you stopping in today.
Well, thank you, and tell them also that they get a chance to go out and start demanding that these public schools started putting these books in the school system. They're still reading all the books. They only talk about Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry. They never see. My books don't talk about those people. I got my own heroes, my Black heroes. That's everything from John Horse to John Brown to Harriet Tubman. I have different heroes. And most of the heroes you see right now every year that they put on the bulletin board during Black History Month, all those photos, they call them our Black heroes. Those are not my heroes. My heroes are Black folk that stood up and said, we are special people. We're exceptional people. And we expect to be recognized, appreciated, and reparated, and compensated, okay? With freedom dues like everybody else. And I thank you, and I love you, and I will see you maybe next Thursday, buddy. Take care, and be good, okay?
I sure will. I sure will. You take care, Dr. Anderson. Everybody watching, thank you. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out. Retweet this, share this, push these messages out. Please, we need your help. Everybody's on the same team. We got to push in that same direction. So everybody's got social media. Please promise me now that you're going to share this video. Just share the link. All you got to do is cut and paste. Just share it with somebody so somebody can hear from Dr. Anderson, because we got to create our own heroes, create our own movie stars, create our own leaders. Don't let other people do it for you. So thanks a lot, Dr. Anderson.
And create those own grocery stores and drug stores and businesses. Now, did you go out in the Black neighborhood to find some groceries today?
You know what? I couldn't. There's no Black grocery stores around, but I'd like to.
Is that something? If you're the most hated out group on earth, and you don't even have a grocery store to get your groceries in a pandemic, major, and you don't have any grocery stores, and I bet you not. And typically, the grocery store shelves will be empty in 2 days.
Yeah.
If a snow was coming. But why in the world would Black folk, after all these centuries of enslavement and Jim Crow semi-slavery, that you don't even have grocery stores? Tell me that. Explain that to me. Now you say, well, Dr. Anderson, you're just so radical. No, I've been preaching, get your own damn businesses. What you own and control will determine your future. So like that's why when Boris Watkins shouldn't have to go out of his neighborhood to look for groceries. There should have been grocery stores and supermarkets all over the black neighborhoods in Chicago. And white folk, and if the food really gets short, they ain't gonna let no black folk come in the neighborhood and buy anything, not gasoline, not food, nothing else. But I love you, and I hope you got everything. So if I come by there one day, have all those steaks on the table for me.
Yes, sir. Sure will. Love you too, sir. Take care of yourself.
Take care, buddy.
Have a great day. Love you all. All right. Bye-bye.